Hi guys, and welcome to another Wargame Red Dragon tutorial video with me, Bubblebox, and today we're going to finish off the infantry by having a look at the anti-aircraft infantry, the engineers and the commandos. So let's have a look at the anti-air infantry first of all, sometimes called the MANPADS, Man-Portable Air Defence System. And all of these guys have this small surface-to-air missile, and they cost between about 5 and 30 points depending on the quality. And as with the last video, we're going to use the examples of the Americans and the Russians, and you can just apply that to all the other nations basically. So you've got your standard primary, which we're not going to talk about, and then you've got this is the main weapon. In this case, this is the cheapest type of American manpad that you can get, and they all do have a low price compared to other anti-air units, and because they're quite low price, they can be deployed kind of all around the battlefield, especially at specific locations such as buildings, trees, and around just the edges of the map to prevent any sneaky chopper attacks and any other units getting behind your line. So the red eye, you can see we've got an area of effect. So if for this weapon, so if it does explode and there's another, for example, if it hits a helicopter and there's another helicopter close by, it will also damage or even kill that close by helicopter as well. F and F, so these are fire and forget. So once this missile has been fired, you can move the unit out of the way. And stat, it has to be static to fire the weapon, so it has to be still to fire the weapon, but once it's fired it can move away out of that position. And it's got 6 of those guys. Range against helicopters is 2,275 and against aeroplanes 1,820. Now this doesn't look like brilliant range, but first of all, the range against the helicopters is nearly always a bit better than the range against the aeroplanes. And they are generally a little bit better at shooting helicopters and aeroplanes, although they're quite good at sort of stunning airplanes as they fly over. The accuracy of this weapon isn't brilliant here at 35%, and the HE power isn't brilliant at 3, so you're going to have to get 2 of these off and to hit to take anything down really. Now if you look at, they're only a strength of 2, so like the anti-tank infantry we spoke about in the last tutorial, they're quite vulnerable and can be easily taken out if spotted and targeted by the enemy. However, they are quite small, they're very small in fact, so they are quite difficult to target. They're also very good, have very good stealth, so they're quite difficult to see as well, and they have medium optics, so they can themselves see not too bad at all. The speed is very low on all of these units, so getting them out of danger is quite difficult if they're spotted and maybe targeted by artillery or something like that. So that's the red eyes. That's the most basic type of American one that you can get, and there's no 90s upgrade, and it comes in a variety of transports. Again, the type of transport you choose depends on what map you're playing maybe and what you want to use these anti-air infantry for. So if you want to get them a long distance quickly, for example, if you're doing a chopper rush at the start, you might want to bring them in something like a Black Hawk, for example, or even in these Hueys with the machine guns, which are a bit cheaper. The Hueys are very slow, so you definitely want to go for the Black Hawks, I think. If you want to try and sneak some behind enemy lines to try and cut off their air corridor, something like that, you might want to try it with a chopper. Dangerous to do against good players, but it can succeed against players that haven't been playing the game very long. And then you've got your standard trucks that you can bring them in on as well. Now the upgrade to the Lad Red Eye is the Lad Stinger, and basically it's just a little bit more, well, quite a lot more accurate actually, at 50%, and a better HE power of 5, so you're paying 5 points more, so you get a much better accuracy, much better HE power. Suppression there as well is decent, and the reload time is exactly the same. And then you've got the upgrade to that, the Stinger C, which is going to cost you 20 points, so twice as much as the Lad Red Eye. In fact, we'll just pin the Stinger up, the Stinger A up, and we'll get the Stinger C to have a look at that as well. I don't know whatever happened to Stinger B, I'm sure. Again, same sort of ranges there, but a very, very nice accuracy of 70% this time, and the same HE power of 5. So you pay 5 points more, you get a better accuracy on this particular weapon. The suppression's exactly the same. 6 missiles. They will fire these fairly quickly, especially if there's sort of a, shall we say, a swarm of planes comes over. So resupply can be a problem with these, and you will need to be able to keep them resupplied if the enemy are using a lot of planes and a lot of choppers. Now these are not radar. They're not radar controlled, so they're not counterable by seed aircraft, and I'll talk about seed aircraft in a later tutorial. I'm not going to talk about that now. Because they're very small and have good stealth, they are, as I said, very difficult for the enemy to spot and target, although if they are spotted and targeted, they are very vulnerable. Now because they're small and difficult to target, they can be placed in close to your front line with your most expensive anti-air units, maybe the radar guided ones for example, which are targetable by seed, put towards the rear, so they're much more difficult to get to. So that means that planes, including seed planes, will at least perhaps be stunned by these manpads, even killed, but often stunned before they get into range of the better quality AA units. And of course if they're stunned, they're not going to be able to drop their bombs or fire their missiles. And then the radar guided missiles should be able to take the planes down. That's the theory anyway. It works sometimes it doesn't. Now these manpads, they're all got better range against helicopters than aeroplanes, and are particularly good at keeping choppers at bay, and are also good for shooting down chopper rushes as well if someone decides to make a chopper rush. And always look out for choppers scouting as well, and try to shoot them down if you can, if you get the chance. So that's pretty much it. They're all pretty much of a muchness. The better ones you pay a little bit more for. They've got better kind of accuracy, better, some of them have got a better range, and they've all got kind of better HE power as well, so you don't need as many of them to shoot down a particular enemy unit. So moving on to the Russian manpads, we'll start with the Strela 3s. So these are the most basic type of unit that the Russians have got, similar to the most basic type of American unit. Decent against helicopters, okay range against aeroplanes, actually only 40%, not fantastic but okay-ish, and an HE power of 3, so you definitely need a couple of these to actually hit. And with an accuracy of only 40, you can see the problems that are going to occur with these cheap manpads. They're just not going to hit that often, and you're better off probably getting a slightly more expensive one. The upgrade to the Strela 3 for the Russians is the Igla, I guess. Igla, get that up. Okay, so this has got a slightly better range against helicopters, slightly better range against airplanes, and much better accuracy at 55%, so it will hit more often than it misses. And then you've got an HE power of 4, which is slightly better than the Strela 3s, but still not brilliant. Okay, so we'll pin that, and then we'll have a look at the best one that the Russians have got, which is the Igla N. Same ranges against choppers and aeroplanes, same accuracy, but a better HE power. So you're an extra 5 points, you get a better HE power, and one of these hits a chopper, it will take a chopper down, and a couple to take down an aeroplane. But one of them will probably stun an aeroplane. It's got good suppression as well at 240. So they're the Russian ones. Of course, you've got your usual nice range of trucks and choppers for the Russians as well to bring these guys in on. So I pretty much will always have a set of these manpads in my deck. Sometimes I'll have more than one set if I go for a specialised motorised or an airborne deck or something like that. They're great in buildings and in trees and around on mountains, tops and stuff like that, and on the flanks, and can really frustrate the enemy. So the only word of warning against these is the lower end ones tend to be just really inaccurate. Now one that you do really want to avoid are these things called the blowpipes. Now they only cost 5 points, and I have tried them in Wargame Red Dragon, and they're atrocious, to be honest. They can't hit shit, okay? they've got an accuracy of 20%. So they've got 6 missiles, and you're pretty much going to have to fire all 6 before one will hit. Not quite, but almost. And they've only got an HE power of 4. So you're going to fire all these off for one hit when it's only going to have an HE power of 4. They're really, really bad, and I would avoid these. I have tried them. They are as bad as they look in the statistics, believe me. So I would avoid them, and at least go for the, if you're having the Brits, for example, go for the javelins, something like that. So moving on to the engineers or sappers. These are infantry squads, just specialised basically in the use of either flamethrowers or incendiary rocket launchers. And I'm going to have a look at the Americans and the Russians again, so we'll just pop up the Americans first of all, I think. So the Americans have got these assault engineers. I do use these a fair bit. They're quite good, especially I find in forests and stuff like that. And they've got this flash rocket launcher which fires napalm rounds. And their main role basically is to stun enemy units and to cause the enemy to leave the cover of the building that they're in. And also with the rocket launcher types, not so much with the flamethrower types, the rocket launchers will also kill infantry quite efficiently as well. And they'll also burn trees and cause any infantry in those burning trees to get stunned, routed, or even killed, especially if it's fired from a rocket launcher. Game. So for this one, you can see it's got a sort of quite a short range, but okay for urban combat and in trees. Accuracy of 40%, which isn't too bad, and a nice HE power of 3 and a very high suppression rate of 254 and a high fire rate, and it's got 8 of those rockets as well. Strength is only 5, so they are able to defend themselves, but not brilliantly, especially if they run out of napalm rounds. They're going to get mullered by an infantry squad probably. Speed's not too fast, but they can get around the map eventually. They're probably best used in combination with another type of infantry unit. For example, with the Americans, if you brought these guys in with some riflemen or even some Royal Marines or something like that, that's not Royal Marines, American Marines, something like that, then these guys could stun, get the units out of their building, kill a few, and the American Marines could then basically kill the rest of them, I guess. All of these guys cost, I think they all cost 15 actually, all the sappers and engineers for the red 4 and blue 4 sides all cost 15 I believe, but not all countries have them. I'll let you check, but not all countries, about half the countries have got access to these types of unit. So let's have a look. They come in various vehicles again, which I'm not going to keep going over. Let's have a look at the Ruskies. So the Russians, so we'll get rid of these, get rid of these, get rid of these, these. So these are the Russians sappers. Again, costing 15, as you can see. This is the basic model. So this time the basic model has got a flamethrower. Fires napalm rounds this time as well, but a very short range, and I don't know what that should be accuracy there. That's a mistake in the stats. They need to change that. So they've got some sort of an accuracy which is probably around 30 or 40%. HE power is only 0.5, so not brilliant. These aren't going to kill infantry very well, but they're still going to be able to stun it reasonably well and suppress reasonably well with a high fire rate as well. These do come in a strength of 10, these sappers. So they are fairly decent at defending themselves, I guess. They've got to take a few hits. However, the better one, and the one definitely to go for, in my opinion, is the Sappery 85s. These only come in squads of 5, as you can see, rather than the 10, but they still cost 15, but they've got a much better weapon. They've got the rocket this time, and the rocket has got a slightly better range, much better accuracy at 50%. And the main thing is it's got HE power of 4, so it's going to kill units as well as stunning and causing units to rout, and it's got a really nice suppression rate of 282. So if you had these guys with maybe some other types of units, a nice motor, even just some motor strelky next door or something like that, then these can stun, get the units out of the buildings, and the other rifle type units can destroy the infantry squad that's they're attacking. So I definitely go for the 85s over these basic ones, especially as they both cost 15 as well. They come in a variety of vehicles and choppers as per normal. And finally for the infantry, we're going to have a look at the Commandos, or the Special Forces. And believe me when I say I have definitely left the best infantry till last. These guys are awesome and I love to play with these in my deck. They're not the cheapest, they're the most expensive types of infantry, I guess. They cost between 25 and 40 points. I don't believe, no, not all countries have them, but most countries have them. All countries except for Canada, Denmark and Czechoslovakia. So if we have a look again, I'm going to have a look at the Americans and the Russians and then choose a couple of others. They do vary quite a lot between the countries, so it's definitely worth having a good look at these guys' stats in the different countries to see what different types of commandos that you can get. But we'll start off again with the, as we did before, with the American units. Get rid of those. So the Americans have got the Delta Force here. So you can see the Delta Force, they've actually got a really nice primary weapon here. This carbine, which is an assault rifle, it's good against, it can fire against ground units, helicopters. It's got a really nice accuracy of 50%, 60% and a stabilizer of 30%, which is much better than the M16, I believe. So it can shoot on the move quite well, with a pretty nice high fire rate there as well. Strength of 10. Training is elite in all of the Commandos. They've all got an elite training. They've all got a stealth of good and medium optics. And another thing is they're all very fast across the ground, which really helps. I'll talk a bit about that shortly. Now these Delta Forces, they've also got a machine gun for close quarters combat. So these guys are going to be good in buildings. And it's got a nice range of 980 there as well. And a nice accuracy and a reasonable, well, averagey sort of fire rate there. And they've also got these Law anti-tank weapon, anti-tank rocket, heat and stats, so it's got to be fire this standing still. Accuracy of 30, AP power of 13. Not the best one in the world, but pretty decent. And remember, these guys are only 25 points. Coming in a variety of trucks and stuff as well. But most of these Commandos, they do have a nice anti-tank weapon, as well as a very nice primary and a decent machine gun as well, so you can apply this to all the other types. Now this speed of 30 is really good, and it means that these special units, these Commandos, can go places that other infantry units will, whoops, there goes the mic, other infantry units will never be able to get to. And also means that these units can get away from trouble if spotted and targeted as well. They're pretty much great in any role, any infantry role, and if you can sneak some of these guys behind enemy lines, they can do immense damage and really distract the enemy away from their primary job on the front line as well. So let's have a quick look at the Russian equivalents. So what do we want to get rid of? Blue 4, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And the Russians have got this one, the Spetsnaz. Now everyone that's ever played any other war game will know all about these guys. These in other war games and also in Red Dragon as well are pretty deadly infantry units. They cost 35, so they're not that cheap. They've got a nice primary. They've got a close quarters machine gun as well, so they're good up close in buildings, in urban combat. And they've also got a napalm rocket launcher, which is really accurate, 50%, and does 4 HE power. So if you put these up against infantry units in a forest or in close quarters combat in a town, and they're going to own most other infantry units, including some of the heavy 15 strength infantry units as well. Them themselves have got a strength of 10, so they can take a bit of punishment, and the rest of the stats are as previously mentioned. But this is a really, really nice Commando Special Forces unit for the Russians. Now there's a couple more of interesting ones that are probably worth noting as well. One of them is the British SAS, which you will see an awful lot of. Loads of people get these guys in, the SAS, and the reason is this Stinger missile. Now they've got a primary, the M16, which isn't too shabby at all, and then they've got an anti-tank weapon as well, so they can take down tanks with a really nice AP power of 19, and they've got this Stinger missile with an accuracy of 50%, an HE power of 5. They've got 4 of those, not many, but I mean, you know, for 35 points, what more do you want, really? Now, these aren't the best against other infantry, but if they come across a tank, an armoured vehicle, or a helicopter, they're just going to shoot the thing down, and they can certainly defend themselves against other infantry with a strength of 10 as well, while they're trying, and they can run away, basically. If they come against a heavy infantry squad, they can just run away with a speed of 30 k's as well. Now, another commando squad that's worth noting are these Polish Commandos. And if you have a look at their stats, they are one of the most expensive commando units at 40 points per squad. But they've got a nice AKS-74U primary with a very high fire rate, decent accuracy, and a nice stabilizer, so they're going to be able to fire while they're still moving with this primary weapon. They've also got a close quarters combat machine gun as well with a decent fire rate, which can be fired, you know, on the move as well, and a nice accuracy. And they've also got this rocket launcher with a decent AP power and a really nice accuracy of 60%. 12 of those guys. So they've got a really nice range of weapons, and there's 15 of these guys. There's 15 strength. So these, if you get these into urban conflict with the enemy, you know, they're going to be a match for pretty much any infantry squads that are already in those buildings. And with a speed of 30, they can get themselves around the map nicely. You could use them in one area, recharge them with a bit of logistics, and then send them off on their way to attack the next area. Really, really nice little group of units there. Are there any downsides to Special Forces, to the Commandos? The only downside is that they are more expensive than other infantry units, and they will die easily against artillery and airstrikes, and sometimes chopper attacks if they can't defend against chopper attacks, just like any other infantry unit. But these guys, they're fun to use in game. If you can get them in a good position, you can do immense damage with these guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. That's the last one for the infantry, and yeah, please do comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.